having to keep that open mind forever, to remain open to ideas and different ways of doing things and continue learning from the best of the best. I think that's something that's really difficult to replicate in the hybrid or virtual world, and especially in technology too. We lose sight of the fact that learning is an experience and there is no end goal to learning. It's not you're done at 12 weeks and you graduate and you're, out of my hair. It's, is this person holistically well at this company, from their sales performance to their mental attitude to their behaviors to the ability to work with their coworkers? There's a myriad of different ways to interview and probe for coachability. One way is
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Ocean, founder and CEO of Sell Me the Spend. Today, I literally have a superstar on the call, Jocelle Sarenpa. she got a lot of awards. I don't know where to start, but she's one of the ones to watch in enablement in 2023 and now in 2024. She's the co-director of REC Twin Cities and a founding ambassador, speaker, contributor, chapter lead for SEC, career coach and mentor, been in enablement for so many years. I'm going to stop it right there. Giselle, how are you doing today?
great. That's wow, what an intro. That's I actually do a lot, and when people start to list it out, or I have to think about all the communities that I'm involved in, I'm like, wow, I am busy, but I love it. I love everything that I do and all the people that I get to work with, interact with, especially you, people like us, and friendships that we've created along the way, enablers and non.
Yes, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. We always, love your positive energy. And today I'm super actually, excited because we're going to talk about onboarding. And you've been in enablement for a very long time, as
Yes.
well as being a frontline, sales person for a long time. You started when you were 17? Like I heard somewhere you were just chatting about this. Like you got into sales when you were 17. So I want to hear that story.
I've been in sales my entire life and I love it. And it's funny because at one point as a grown adult, I went back to school to get my Bachelor of Science in Marketing and thought, I'm going to be done with sales. I'm going to move over to the other side. I'm going to be a marketer, whatever that meant at the time to me. And I found myself back in sales again. So it actually, it's something I can't stay away from. And I have such an appreciation for sales, the art of sales, the profession of sales, salespeople, what it takes to be a good salesperson, what it takes to be a good sales manager, because it's really difficult. And sales managers, sales leaders, frontline managers, they get no credit. We in enablement think we get no credit. We get some, but the plate just keeps getting filled and filled and filled on for sales leadership. And one of the things is onboarding, enablement, and training is this kind of oscillation between that lives here versus it's completely decentralized. And I think just in my own experience, this world of training and enablement is and coaching is everyone's responsibility. And the best way to do that is finding the right balance for your organization. But yeah, my origins are sales and selling, and I'm right back in it. This is my world that I love.
I love that. I love it. So you started in sales, got into enablement, got back in sales. You sit in both sides of the table, and
Yes.
I think you're truly qualified for today's topic because I have some stories to share. I want to hear your stories, but I'm going to take you back to the first sales job when you were 17. Tell me about your onboarding experience when you got started in sales. I'm super curious to hear.
So my first, a little different than I think a lot of my peers in enablement or sales leadership in the software and technology world. I started in the retail world at 17 years old. I mean, I don't know if software technology organizations hire non-interns at 17 years old. But yeah, I've had a sales quota since then, started in the retail space. I worked in diamonds and fine jewelry. So my very first experience with onboarding was essentially working on a very small team. You think about a physical retail store where you have a manager, an assistant manager, you've got team leads, you've got full-time, you've got part-time, you've got seasonal flux, you've got office people. So there's a whole mix in the fishbowl of what a retail environment looks like. And then you've got this sphere outside of your fishbowl, which is your divisional vice presidents and the corporate side that really find ways to infiltrate the fish tank with, new plants and toys to play with, just for variety's sake, and to really incorporate some of the, standardization across all of the fish tanks. All of the retail stores are all the same.
Mhm.
And so my first foray into getting onboarded was essentially a very old computer program that essentially walked you through different scenarios that you would encounter with a customer. And I think that bit was really useful in the mechanical side of what the job entailed. And then there was this other side that wasn't really structured, there was no formality to it. And that was where I learned the most, and that's shadowing. Shadowing, being immersed into watching my peers do what they do and do it well. And then on the flip side, ones that did not go well. And you could see the immediate result. And I think in that environment, the retail environment where you didn't know who was coming in through your doors at any given time, what they wanted, how much research they had done before coming in, how open minded they were, what's their level of indecision or decisiveness. It's really hard to gauge all that. I think on the benefit side to this retail environment was the being nimble and adaptive to be able to respond to whoever was right in front of you in the moment, and getting the number of at bats was just like, I mean, talk about a jewelry store during Christmas time and holiday season. We had a line out the door many, many years, and this is like, mid early 2000s. So yeah, quite a busy time, and got to learn from a lot, and got to learn from the best. I think in my almost 10 years in that space, it was it was a lot of learning from people that were much more senior than I was. And I think by the time that I had left, where I was the sales manager and the resident diamondologist, and completed all my coursework, went to school for the thing, and had all, performance numbers to support how great of a performance team and individual I was still the youngest person on the team. So being underneath someone's wing, or the wing of many others, including the sales leaders, the store managers, that really helped. That really helped open my mind to being coachable and remaining coachable, even though I had, earned my stripes, so to speak. Being young, the youngest person on the team forever, having to keep that open mind forever, to remain open to ideas and different ways of doing things, and continue learning from the best of the best. I think that's something that's really difficult to replicate in the hybrid or virtual world, and especially in technology too, where we're kind of siloed within our own products. But
Hmm.
very cool experience. Very, very
I
cool and
bet.
different experience.
I really love this story because, like, I had similar experiences in the past. To your point, like when you do retail or when you're in actually physical space, you cannot hide behind your computer. So
No,
people come in, they want the service. There's no way around it. You got to deal with them, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the time setting that we were in this fish tank, so to speak, was in a world that e-commerce wasn't really huge back then, where the expectation of service was a lot more elevated, where you didn't have a digital experience right in front of you. So it's definitely a different world back then than it is now, but much respect for anybody in the year 2024, 2025 that are working in retail, or doing retail management or customer service, to that in that regard. It's certainly has new layers of challenges, even with technology.
Hmm. Look, I want to dig into this a little bit more. I know most of our audience are in, B2B SaaS, and, we all sell
Yeah.
technology, but this is an interesting story because I think we can get some wisdom out of this. So obviously peer-to-peer learning during your onboarding, could help a lot. And you had this beginner mindset that, hey, I'm the youngest here. I'm going to learn from you guys. And people typically love that, especially like,
Yes.
again, in retail space, like they want to take care of you. So I'm just curious, like, comparing it to technology, like I've seen a lot of companies, and I had this experience myself. You get a lot of information and content around the product. So you were
Yes.
actually selling a luxury, very expensive product, and you need to be specialized about talking about that product. But I assume like really connecting with people on an emotional level and understanding the fundamentals play a bigger role. And maybe I'm off base, so I want to hear from your perspective, like starting in that environment, which side of, let's say, training was more prominent? You know, it was it product, was it more foundational sales, learn about how to talk to people? So I'm just curious to hear that.
It's funny because what was set up in the retail space around learning was really on the skill side, very much on the people skill side, very much on the service side, and a bit of process woven into that because, there's efficiency numbers you need to hit. You don't want your customer getting, annoyed that you're sitting on your computer typing in a bunch of fields over and over again. So there's certainly an efficiency element there with your process, but definitely centered around the service and the skill set, the communications. And it really was like product was the afterthought. And there's really one element from the 7-step sales process we had in retail. They have one, in case anyone was wondering in retail, do they have a sales process? Sales processes and methodologies are not just for the SaaS technology world, they're also in the retail and B2C world. The very first step is what I had carried over into the world of SaaS and technology. And the first step in retail sales process was PMA, and that stands for positive mental attitude. And what that really entails is before you even talk to anybody, your coworkers, before you even like check in for the day, when you're like putting your stuff in your little locker, you check your mental attitude. Am I in the right headspace to be having conversations with customers right now? Am I bringing my best self to work right now? What are some small things that require very low resistance that are going to help me get into that positive mental attitude, into that positive mindset where I can be of service to other people? And sometimes it was simple as, someone comes in for the day as the manager, someone comes in for the day and they are visibly stressed out. They had to sit through traffic. They, got their kids to school late. They didn't have breakfast, whatever conditions were in front of them. They come in and they're visibly stressed out. If your first step in your sales process is positive mental attitude, that's the first thing you have to do. You check yourself, you self-regulate, you hold accountability to yourself and to your team. What do you need to do to pull yourself out of that and get into the right mindset? And sometimes that was a walk around the mall. Sometimes that was, I'm going to drink some cold water. Sometimes that was, you know what? I'm just going to FaceTime my kid really quick, tell them how much I love them. Whatever the thing was that pulled you out of your negative state so that you were ready and prepared to essentially be on stage and to bring your best self. I think those were some of those small things that made a huge difference from the B2C world into the B2B world.
I love that. Simple things.
Simple
Simple
things.
things just to, get you back in the right mindset and just, keep moving on with your day. I love
Sure.
this, but I want to switch to something
Of
and,
course. Yeah.
let me tell you a, personal story, and then maybe you can share one. Most of my onboarding experiences were horrible, horrifying.
Yeah. You're not alone.
so, so people, don't sue me, but I'm going to start with, a big brand, Microsoft. So I got into tech sales and I had no idea about tech. I never sold Office 365 or Azure, and supposedly I had to have conversations with, CTOs and people who really dig into technical side of things. And I remember like the first 2 weeks, it was just content dumping to the bone. Sit down in front of your laptop, you have these modules and you go through them and you just click, the right answer. And you can make mistakes. Oh, the wrong answer. Oh, this is the right answer. Woohoo, I got it. And we got this big batch of people who were getting on board, and then we're all looking at each other. Guys, am I a dummy, or you have the same, same issue? I don't get any of that. Like, I'm going through these modules and there are tons of like different licensing and all that stuff. Am I going to communicate this with the CTO? And who is a CTO even? What does this
Right.
even mean? So 2 weeks passed, nobody learned anything, but we all passed, the exams. All the modules are completed. Woohoo! we got into the actual, let's say, training and coaching with a human. I remember they flew some people from I don't know where exactly, but they came in. So it was like a raw, salespeople. You guys gonna hit the ground. You're gonna hit the floor. You're gonna do this and that. And it was just for you know I think 1 week, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the exact duration, 1 or 2 weeks. So we started with tool training. So we are still not getting to skill training, and we are fresh people who never actually sold tech before. So we see again modules after module. Use your computer, and at the time we had like desktops, no laptops, right? So we are just doing that a little bit, just go through the modules, and we did maybe 1 or 2 days of role play, and it was extremely stressful. I never forget this. That was my first really horrifying experience. The trainer said, "Why can't you be smarter?" And that was my first experience in tech. So I went to him. I said, "Dude, next time I take you to HR, like in front of everyone. I've never done this job. I'm trying to learn." So he was just watching it. But at the end of the day, like we didn't get the skill set. So we started practicing based on leads they were giving us. So all those
Yep.
leads, we had good and bad leads. So apparently we had to call leads that they're not interested even in chatting with us. So just getting hang up, just to build that confidence. So that was the introduction of tech sales to me. And later on, again, there are many other stories, like joining mostly startups where we had no content, and then I started like as a senior onboarding people, and there was no structure, right? But I want to hear one specific story from your end, if you have one. Hopefully, you're lucky; you never experienced such thing.
Gosh, I will put it this way. I've been very, very lucky. So I mentioned my onboarding in the B2C world, very different. And my onboarding in the SaaS technology world, I stepped into a great program, and it was essentially your first full quarter. And I was a little baby BDR at the time who had like never written a professional email. My CRM was not Salesforce or anything. It was a book, two books really, like this big, and it was like A through J and K through Z. Like that was our CRM that we had in our fishbowl of retail of a retail store. And so learning all this technology, it was certainly an uphill battle. And I think, one of the challenges that I personally had was I didn't come in from the technology space. So I had to really learn all of that stuff from scratch. Like I said, I'd never written a professional email before. The onboarding program itself was phenomenal. What I didn't have was the assumption that everybody else had, which was you just graduated from a 4-year university. This is your first job out of college. You've already been in a communications degree or marketing degree or sales, or did an internship before this. That was the assumption of the people coming into this program. And where I was really lacking was I had 10 years of sales experience coming in, but I didn't have the professional business acumen that a lot of other people had. So to say that I was at a disadvantage coming in, slight understatement there, but as far as rigor went, we talk about rigor as how difficult is the program set up, and can we modulate for the people coming in based on what information, knowledge, and skill set they're coming in with. And I just didn't. I had a different level of rigor than some of my peers had. So yeah, it was a learning experience, and I'd say my horror story would be the first time I had to write a professional email as a BDR. I was putting together my templates. This is before any technology really exists for sales automation and outreach automation. And I had sent the sample of the email to my account executive who I was supporting at the time. And he was so kind. He was so nice to me. And he writes back and he says, maybe you want to expand the email window because your spacing is all off. because I was writing in this like tiny little draft form. Having a coach like that who was really, he saw in me that I had the sales skills, that I had the conversational skills. I was working on my product knowledge, but I did not have the business. He helped me so much through the like just navigating business technology that, I got up to speed pretty quickly and was able to be very effective finding opportunities for him. So in turn, it helped him win, but it also helped me along the way because I wasn't getting that from my onboarding, and understandably so. Most people should be able to learn some of that stuff in college or through their internship programs, which I just didn't have.
This is really fascinating because it opens up another conversation about the seller persona itself. Like, who are we actually dealing with? Maybe we got a batch of, let's say, BDRs or SDRs, and I've seen it in my career. Like, we literally hired a police officer, then we got a
Cool.
musician, then we got someone who sold retail for 5 years, and they're all in the new batch as new SDRs. So do they really have the same knowledge? Do they have, same understanding of our space? So I wanted to ask you actually this question based on your experience. Would you first and foremost say maybe this is the first part of a good, onboarding strategy, to look at our seller personas and their background, get to know them in a one-on-one, basis, and then, start from there, moving on? What, where should we start? Maybe it's a better even question.
So it's interesting because I talk to enablers from all over the world on a weekly, if not daily basis, really tapped into the communities and hearing what they go through. And it's interesting because some are very involved in the hiring process. Some
Hmm.
have no control, no say, no input, nothing on who winds up in their onboarding programs, who comes in through the door. Um, for me, personally, it's very important being that welcome wagon to the new hires that come in, they spend their time with me, to be able to help inform the business, the hiring managers, that says these are great candidates that are doing really well in this training. These are the skill sets that they have that set them apart, that help them be successful in the way that the training is set up. And also, here's some that are really great, but our training is not set up to support them in a way. How do we come up with a plan for them that is individualized for their learning and their needs? Back to my email story. And then we have some that are, this person is going to struggle because something was lost in our hiring process, that they do not match our core values. They are not operating in our defined set of rules that we have for how successful people at this organization operate, what's going to set them apart. And be able to inform the business on what those things are. So for enablement professionals, it's really important, or anybody who's involved in the onboarding process, to be involved in that hiring process that helps inform the business. These are the characteristics that we see being successful through training and beyond. And part of the way that we do that is through metrics, like measuring anything and everything you can about who your successful salespeople are. Who are your A players? Who are the ones that are going to thrive and succeed? Who are those? What attributes do they have? How do they perform through training? And really testing for that. And then not only testing for that during your training and onboarding, but pulling that forward into the hiring process in your interviews. So if you are a coaching culture that's really big on constant coaching, constant feedback, the Kaizen mentality, which is constant performance and really striving to be the best version of yourself. If that's really ingrained into your culture, you got to make sure that you're doing that in your interview process, screening for coachability. And how do we do that? There's a myriad of different ways to interview and probe for coachability. One way is you have a candidate come in, do a presentation, and you select a few things, maybe two things, one, two, three things that this candidate could work on in future conversations and future presentations and skills, whatever the thing is. Offer up that critique, that piece of feedback to them, and see if they bring that forward in subsequent interviews. See if they recall that. See if they went out and worked on it on their own and brought something back to you. See if they reach out to you on LinkedIn and say, I never knew that I did that thing, but now I can't, now that you shared this with me, I can't unsee it. I can't unhear that. And I've been working on it. Here's what I've done to work on it. And thank you so much for sharing that with me. Like, to be able to identify that level of coachability where if you give feedback, if you offer critiques, criticism, coaching, opportunities to evolve, to advance, that they really internalize that and bring it back to you. I think that's one of those magical moments that, you know, we look for coachability in human beings, and that's one that's very evident that says, yeah, if we're in a tense deal, if we're in a tense $1 million deal and I offer a piece of feedback to this rep that says, I think this is actually going to help you perform based on what it is that you want to achieve, and they really work with it, internalize it, and bring it back to you and be like, I did that thing that you said. I practiced it a couple of different ways. Here's what's really going to work for me. And thank you so much. It really made a difference. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. And it shows that they can continue to take that feedback, internalize it, and continue getting better.
What I love about what you're saying is from day zero, you position enablement not as an order taker, but someone who can prevent some really big problems, you know, from top of a funnel when
Yes.
you get the talent. So
Yes.
let me ask you this, Giselle. Maybe my again, with my limited experience, I work for billion-dollar companies, but then I switched to startups. So I've
Mm.
always been part of the founding sales team, either for my own startup or for someone else. So I've never ever seen enablement getting involved. And it makes a lot of sense because who's, to your point, who am I going to meet first? Who is going to take my hand first? Enablement.
Yes.
But I never seen enablement get involved during the hiring process. I've seen even senior reps getting involved, but not
Yeah.
enablement. So
Right.
you tell me, like, how does this work? Like, is this something that enablement should go fight for, or maybe some
Absolutely.
companies have this culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when an enablement professional can put together a essentially an archetype or red flags and gold stars based on the data and performance of their sales team, qualitative, quantitative, they look at the entirety of the health and performance of their sales individuals and reps and teams.
Mhm.
You can start to form a picture of what sorts of things can we test for that make them successful. How does this compare to our competency mapping? What sort of models do we follow here that we can bring forward, not just in once they go live or once they're ramped, what are they doing? Bring that into the training and then bring that forward to the hiring process. It's like, well, if they're not doing well in onboarding, how can we be guaranteed that they're going to do well in real life?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's, let's not prolong the inevitable and say, you know, we do all the things to ensure that this person is the right person, but sometimes we miss something. And do we want to bring them all the way through to the end to just, like, you know, struggle and ramp once they're in? I think that really speaks to the HR and people management side of things, where how much does it cost to onboard a new employee? How much does it cost
Mhm.
to offboard an employee? So I think that message alone is pretty powerful to say, I have the data that shows I can determine with, you know, whatever accuracy, 80, 90% accuracy, that says if we hire someone of these attributes that perform in this way during training, they are likely to be successful. They're likely to get promoted in 17 months. They are likely to be a team lead in 8 months. You know, we can start to identify what those indicators are. And by using data to back up just your own confidence with what you know about the salespeople in your cohorts, I mean, we have the anecdotal evidence to back us up. Like, so and so is always late. So and so never turned their stuff in. So and so, or this person always stayed after to ask more questions. This person wanted to do a run through with me just to make sure that they had everything in order. You know, if those are attributes that are important that make a salesperson successful at your organization, then those are things that you're going to want to train for, coach for, and then, you know, even further pre-funnel, how do we hire for that? How
Mhm.
do we make a
Mhm.
case
Mhm.
for enablement? Yes, use you data will be your friend, anecdotes will be your friend, and historical data as well. So even if you're like, well, we haven't hired any, a lot of organizations are dealing with this. We haven't hired any new salespeople in years. How do we even do that? Well, you can retro survey your existing pool. You can look at the whole of your sales organization, lob off your top 20, compare them to your bottom 20%, and kind of see where did they perform over time. So what can we interpolate from this data that says these types are going to be successful and these are some that will be less successful, and then you can start working with that.
I'd really like this. Like you're talking about, historic data, like
Yeah,
something tangible that you already, work with. Because sometimes, like I heard these stories from clients that, hey, we went and hired the highest performing rep, from Salesforce. We brought them to sell, healthcare, and they failed miserably. 3 months, grace periods, they are gone. Tons of cost and time wasted for us. But to your point, let's just see who's a fit for what we
hmm,
are doing within our space, and we can learn from our historic data. At least we can de-risk it,
yeah,
to certain level. Let me ask you something about during onboarding. So just
sure,
imagine we make sure that, all right, they're a cultural fit, they're aligned with our visions and goals and mission of the company. And maybe it's easier even if I share an example. We have a
sure.
current client, they're hiring really, really quickly. Like when we started, they were like 25, 30 new hires. And right now, the entire org is around 150 salespeople. And funny enough, when we benchmarked with their historic data of 4 years, what they
Hmm,
were doing wrong was not necessarily around culture, but the fact that they had to teach a lot of technicalities. So
mm,
what they were selling, it requires more time to ramp. I mean, this is a typical situation, anyways. Like typically 3 to 6 months if you're selling something complex. And we realized the bigger problem is not the fact that they're not a fit or they don't have the willpower. The problem is they don't actually observe the information, they cannot retain it. So that's
mm,
why they don't have the confidence level for being ready to go on field. And then we send them on field, they go practice there, and the first time to close is not coming until 3 months in the seat. And then VP gets, crazy mad. So
yes,
these things could actually change to me through practice, through
yes.
continuous practice. You get the material, you practice, you practice, you practice. So point being, right now everything is changing with AI. I want to hear
Mhm.
from your perspective, what use cases have you seen being the most impactful when it comes to onboarding new hires?
So I'll borrow a couple things. So, when I first started in enablement, when I was just a little baby sales trainer enabler, I got this great advice from Peter Ostro. He's from Forrester. And his model was tell, show, do, reinforce, and own. Those are the steps in your onboarding process or any sort of enablement program should be tell, show, do, reinforce, and own. And I think about those steps and where potentially AI technology can plug in. And I'd say practice is huge.
Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With Sell Me the Spend AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at sellmethespend.ai.
Practice is huge at every step, and it's almost like two different models or processes that can be overlapped on each other. So the tell, show, do, reinforce, and own, the 5 steps that are part of any enablement program. And then we layer on top of that the 4 ways that human beings learn. And that's through work, practice, conversation, and reflection. And so for work could be this is like doing the work. This is stretching beyond what you already know. This is drilling the stuff that you do already know. This is contextual information that finds its way to you that you have to grapple with and really understand to internalize it, to let it crystallize so that it becomes a thing that you just understand. The second one is practice, and that is the repetition, the feedback, the coaching, the opportunities to fail, to try something and to do it in a way where you don't hit the result that you want, and therefore you come back and you practice in a new and different way and you try again. Practice. Conversation. So this is any learnings that you would get. I mentioned in my retail environment, in my fishbowl, where I'm learning from the best and having conversations and overhearing conversations and really digesting what is being said around me and internalizing that as well, because in conversation things emerge when you just get to grapple with a topic. And sometimes those things are not apparent when you are just by yourself. And we rely on other humans in order to gain new ideas. So conversation is a huge part of it. And the fourth one, I think, is exactly where we started this off, which is reflection. So if in your scenario that you had, if you never have the opportunity to reflect, to take a step back, to analyze your own performance, to analyze your own skill set and learning thus far, if you have never had a time to review what it was that you just learned, you could lose that very quickly. If you never have the opportunity to reflect, you probably won't be getting better, because you're also maybe not taking that practice to the next step. Because in my mind, the work, the conversation kind of go hand in hand. The practice and conversation go hand in hand. The practice and reflection, all of these things together, there is required in how we learn. Now, people learn in different ways. People prefer different mixes of those, but those are the four: work, practice, conversation, and reflection. So incorporating that into any of your steps in tell, show, do, reinforce, and own, your stages of an enablement program, if you can plug those things in, or at least be cognizant of it. Maybe you're dealing with a cohort that it's like pulling teeth to get them to reflect on something. Make it really small. Make it a small daily practice. Maybe it's give me 2 sentences on what it was. First sentence is, what did we learn today? And second sentence of your reflection is, what am I still curious about after learning everything that I learned? 2 sentences, super simple, shouldn't take a lot of time. That in itself just builds that daily habit that says, it's reflection time. Give me your sentence. What did you learn today? In 1 sentence, what did you learn? Second, what are you still curious about? What do you still want to learn about? What did you feel like you should have learned today that you didn't, given everything else that we talked about? What is something that you think everybody else learned but you didn't? Like, you can change up the variety if you want to, but the questions are super simple. But yes, work, practice, conversation, reflection. That's 4 ways we learn.
I love it. Thank you very much for getting
Yes,
more tactical. I really love what you shared. And those questions, to your point, they sound simple, but they're really powerful. I
absolutely.
remember I had a senior enabled leader on the call, and at the end I said, "Hey, I learned a lot from this call," and I genuinely did. And she turned the table and said, "Michael, we're not recording right now. Can you tell me what you learned, just for me as feedback?" I said, "I actually learned this, 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 and that." I was like, "This is really interesting. Nobody ever asked me on a podcast, on my own podcast, like, what did you learn?" And to your point, you started reflecting. Did I really learn? I'm not trying to be nice, trying to just do my checklist work that, hey, yes, it was an onboarding, I just got hired here, I have to go through the thing, but do I really actually struggle with something that I need to internalize myself before sharing them with anyone else? Because I really love this.
Reflection is another form of self-coaching too. So yeah, yep. Coaching does not leave at all. Coaching from others, from your trainers, from your managers, from your HR people, from your peer, from yourself. Self-coaching. That's a big part of reflection. And if anyone does like journaling in life, you understand the value of reflecting back on what has happened and internalizing that and bringing that forward to the next day and the following, and really learning from your own experiences. And I don't know, sometimes it just takes a minute to reflect on your own experiences and say, that was not my best, or I'm really proud of myself. It could be the inverse. I'm really proud of myself for how I handled that. I could have gone this way and I chose to do it differently. And this was the result. And I think I'm going to stick with it because it worked out.
It's really interesting, and to me, it's really powerful. And sometimes just reminders from people that we call leaders. Could be enablement, it could be manager, it could be your AE. Remember, he was just like trying to help you, or whatever. Just by communicating this message, like what you just said, like maybe you could do better. maybe you did a great job, give yourself a credit. We all know that we are adults, hopefully, by the time we get to, tech, we already, went through some things in life. So these are not necessarily like completely foreign ideas. But if you have someone who can be a reminder, I think that would be really, really powerful, especially when you get hired to a new organization. Because to your point, coaching shouldn't come always from another person. It could be, internal. You can self-coach and basically get better by yourself.
Yep.
Giselle, my last question. So, onboarding. So, typically, yes, enablement is responsible for
Mm.
onboarding, although other people might get involved here and there. But there are a lot of challenges, like when it comes to truly, ramping reps. So, you need, sales managers getting involved, and because they're in the front lines, they are the
Yes.
ones who are going to, take care of these reps, moving on. And also you got your peers, some more experienced, some people who's been in the seat and been there and done that. If you could choose one person inside the organization to partner with, and you didn't
Hmm.
have the luxury to really go out and get everyone, it could be from product, it could be the sales manager, it could be the senior rep, another senior rep, which one would you choose to get involved during onboarding?
I will say in my onboarding programs, it's a team effort. It is a team effort. It's not one person's responsibility to onboard a new rep. It's everyone's. It's HR as a hiring manager. It's the sales manager if it's different. It's subject matter experts across the org, whether it's solution principals or GMs or go to market people, whoever you view as subject matter expert based on the subject. Sales leadership, your head of sales or CRO, and then peers, the peers, the buddies, the people that the go-to person that you have on your team when you're a new person that says, no stupid questions. No stupid questions. This person's been in my seat before. They know where all the stuff is. They can help me with the day to day. They're in the private team Slack channel who can like give me the dirt. That's your go to, your buddy. But I think having the range is really important to get that 360 and understand, the different areas of expertise that these helpers, these other coaches have in their own respective realms. If I were to pick one, if there was only one person, title, role, group that was involved with onboarding from day one alongside enablement professionals, that has to be sales leadership. Has to be the sales manager because that's who's going to continue on. It's like, I think about this to be almost like a relay race where you have a passing of the baton. The person that you were passing the baton to doesn't start running when they get the baton. They start running to match your pace so that they're already hitting the ground running before they receive the baton. So I think in a lot of onboarding situations I hear about, it's the sales manager takes over once they've, hit all the checkpoints and graduated from the onboarding program. Reality is the sales manager needs to be involved from day one, and that is really showing support to your sales rep. This is helping them navigate all the little things that enablement shouldn't really be in charge of, like what is expected, what's on my job description, what numbers do I need to hit this day, this week, this month. I think the partnership between the sales manager and the sales enablement also helps them with ongoing coaching and development as well, where, if the sales manager is involved from the get-go, they can say, I know we're taking a chance on this person because they don't have fill in the blank, whether that's product knowledge or market industry expertise, or they don't have the sales skills, or maybe they're like me and didn't use business technology before. Whatever the thing is that puts them a little bit at risk, that says, in order for this person to be successful, I need to help bolster them up in these areas. And what are we going to do for a customized development plan for this person based on the shortfalls of their skill set? And so that the sales leader is knowledgeable about this, that the enablement person is knowledgeable about this, so that we can be a bit more adaptable and do what we're actually supposed to do, which is help salespeople learn to be successful salespeople at your organization. And we lose sight of that. It's so silly, but like we lose sight of that enablement. We're like, oh, I got to measure the metrics and I got to like make sure they hit their milestones and that they're completing their competency maps. We lose sight of the fact that learning is an experience. And there is no end goal to learning. It's not you're done at 12 weeks and you graduate and you're, out of my hair. It's, is this person holistically well at this company, from their sales performance to their mental attitude to their behaviors to the ability to work with their coworkers? We lose sight of all of that and how important it is and what a big responsibility it is to run onboarding and run onboarding well. And so in order to do that, you have to have that partnership with your sales leadership in order to, really continue on that development.
I love it. And I guess you're really positioned nicely, or you're completely, have the right to say this because you've been on both sides of the table. And to your point, like, again, it comes with the company culture. Like, if you
Yes.
don't have it, I think, like, as an enabler or, even as sales manager, if this alignment does not exist, there's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, I've seen it depending on the stage of a company, maybe a startup, sometimes the sales manager does not even have that organizational knowledge compared to someone who started earlier. So yeah, that's okay to bring some of the peers to help with that. but if you're a company at a certain stage and you already have a structure, this should be part of a culture. This is not a nice to have. This is a necessity to
Yes.
get involved with the process from very early on. Giselle, that was extremely helpful. I really do appreciate you taking the time. So, if someone wants to reach out to you to have a conversation, first and foremost, can they and how?
Yeah, please do. I'm pretty involved with the various, as you mentioned, as with the various enablement communities. I'm always happy to help out on onboarding or other training programs or even career development. I'm not like a consultant or anything. I'm just a enabler, enabling enablers. So please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Giselle, my first name, and you can find me. Send me a LinkedIn message. You can find me in the various Slack channels and enablement communities. But yeah, I'm happy to network and get to know others and see if I can help be of service in any way.
Amazing. I appreciate you. All right, guys. Hope you learned something new. And until next time, bye for now.